Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by to watch my video today. I run a little woodworking business out of my garage here, and these are some of the products that have done quite well for me today. I thought I'd make a video to show how I built them. When I designed these, I wanted to go for a classy look, so I went with mitered edges, and I used brad nails and glue, so there's no visible screws. So the idea is you just take the flower pot and you just put it right down in there, like that. So I think the big win here has been, for this product, is that these come in 3 different sizes. And people seem to really like that they can buy them in sets of 3 and group them, and they look really nice. So when I first started building these, I'd build them one at a time, and I'd make about $20 an hour doing that. But I wanted to see if I could do better than that, so I built a bunch of jigs, and now I build them in batches of 5. And so doing that, I make somewhere between $40 and $55 an hour profit for my shop time, which I feel pretty good about. So I've created what I'm calling a side hustle starter pack to help you build these. And so this includes everything you need to get going. It includes the plans for the jigs. It includes really high quality photos, so you can just post those right on Facebook Marketplace. I even include the text that you need for your listing. So the idea is to simplify the process so you can just focus on building and not have to worry about all those details. You can find a link for this in the description if you're interested. So in this video, what I'll be doing is just showing the steps from that starter pack. So let's get started. The first step is prepping your lumber.
The first step is to get your pickets ready to go. Table saws, miter saws, and planers don't like staples, so start by pulling them all out. A screwdriver and some needle nose pliers does the trick. Some staples can be hard to see, so make sure you look closely. And as any self-respecting dad would do, I put my daughter to work on this part. Next, I'll plane all the boards down. Now, this isn't strictly necessary if you can find boards that are pretty close to the same thickness. The first boxes I made were a little wonky though, because I couldn't find boards that were close in thickness and I didn't plane them. Planing is nice too because it means you won't have to sand as much. So I always rip 1/16 inch off one side at this point. This cleans up that side and straightens out the edge just a little bit. Okay, so next my work buddy and I sand any boards the planer didn't get because of low spots. Once that's done, we're ready to cut out all the parts. I start by making all my rip cuts all at once. For the batch I'm building, I need 10 lengths at 4 3/16, 5 at 1 inch, 5 at 2 13/16, and 21 lengths at 2 inches. I make these rip cuts in the same order every time, which helps ensure I'm getting the most use out of each board.
Okay, so next you want to make all your cross cuts. Here again, the order of these cuts does matter, otherwise you might end up not getting all your pieces cut, and then you'd have to go prep some more lumber, which is kind of a pain. One quick tip, you'll want to be sure the dog ears are part of the waist or your cutoffs. Otherwise you might end up missing a corner of one of your parts, which would also be a pain. Okay, I wanted to show this real quick. I've got this board along the back set this way because it just gives you a lot cleaner cuts. Now I'm using one of the Pickets, but you could really use any board you wanted for this. Okay, so here's another tip. The stop block and pre-marked measurements are going to be your best friends when you're making cross cuts. So I've gone and I've marked pretty much every measurement on painter's tape. That's that green tape you can see in the background, so that I can move between the different sized cuts really fast. The stop block ensures all the cuts are exactly the same length. Yeah, stop blocks and pre-marked measurements, 2 thumbs up. And then for the top trim pieces, you're gonna need to cut 45-degree angles on each side. What I do is I just tape 4 pieces together and then I make those cuts all at the same time. That way they're just perfectly the same. And when you're all done with your cross cuts and have them all stacked, it should look something like this. Okay, this is where things get serious. We're gonna start assembling the side panels. But let's pause for a minute first and talk about where you should and where you should not shoot brad nails when you're making these panels. After assembling all the panels, you'll end up having a stack of 20 of these, and they'll look something like this. The next step will be to cut along these edges at a 45-degree angle. So if you put nails close to the side, you'll end up cutting the brad nails with your table saw, and you don't want to do that. Now, the nice thing is that the jigs will keep you from shooting nails where you shouldn't, but I wanted to point that out so you're aware. All right, this is my favorite part because we get to use the panel assembly jig. I have to admit, I'm a little proud of this thing because before I made this, getting all the parts aligned was a little rough and it took a long time. But with the cams locking everything in place, it's really pretty easy.
You can assemble panels for the 3 different sizes with this jig. Right now with this cam in the middle, it's set up for the 19.5-inch boxes. But if you move the cam here or here, then you can assemble panels for the 13 or the 26-inch planters.
I do the steps in the same order each time. First, I'm going to place the first leg. Now that would be the one to your left, with the finished side down. In fact, all the pieces will be placed with the finished side down. Next, glue the ends of the rail closest to you and then anchored in place by setting the cam. Now let's pause here for a second. You'll notice that I reversed the cam so it faced the other direction. If I hadn't done that, the cam would have tended to pull the rail away from the leg to my left. So just pay attention to the direction you rotate the cams, it does matter. And then one more thing, take it easy on the cams. If you crank down too hard on them, it's going to be hard to get the panel off the jig when you're done. Okay, and now you will glue and set the rail furthest away from you. And now it's time to place the second leg, this will be the one to your right, and then set that cam. Next, apply glue on the rails and the legs. You'll need to mess up a few times before you kind of figure out what the right amount of glue is. I shoot for just enough glue that it's almost squeezes out, but doesn't, so that I don't have to clean it up. Okay, once you've got your glue down, place the first picket and nail it using the 1-inch brad nails. Notice how the jig keeps me from shooting nails too close to the edge, like I mentioned before. All I do is just slide my nailer along the guide and then it puts the nails right where I need them. Now this next step is really important. You got to be sure to release the cams holding both rails, because if you forget to release the cams and then you nail on the next 2 pickets, you'll cover the cams and you won't be able to release them and you'll have to tear everything apart and you'll kind of feel like an idiot. I know, I've done it a lot of times. It's a real bummer. Now place and nail the second and third pickets. And be sure to use the right nail guide when nailing the third picket so you don't accidentally put any nails in the wrong place. Okay, at this point you can pull the panel off the jig and clean up any glue that's squeezed out.
All right, moving along. Now it's time to rip the miters along the edges. To do that, you're just gonna set your blade to cut at 45 degrees and then adjust your fence so your blade cuts right to the edge of the leg. What you're trying to do here is get a really sharp 45-degree angle. Once you do that, you're going to want to rotate the panel 180 degrees and then cut the miter on the other side. You'll likely need to adjust the fence a bit, especially on the first panel, to give that second leg a nice sharp angle. And after getting your fence setting finalized, just repeat this process for all the panels. You may need to make minor adjustments as you're making these cuts to ensure you're getting a nice sharp edge. But they should be only minor adjustments at this point, think like plus or minus a 1/16 of an inch. Now again, the goal here with these adjustments is to get a sharp edge without cutting too much into the legs. You'll notice I'm using a 1/4 sheet of melamine to raise the panel off the table saw, so I found this helps the cut piece fall clear from the blade. Alright, so at this point I'll give all the panels another quick sanding to clean up any glue residue. You'll want to pay special attention to these joints between the rails and the legs because you'll usually have some glue residue there. And once you've ripped all the miters and sanded, you should get a really nice, beautiful stack that looks like this. It's very cool, very satisfying. Okay, the next thing we need to do is attach the shelf cleats to 10 of the panels that you just put together. I just used the 1-inch brad nails for that and my trusty cleat alignment jig. And now let's go ahead and put the shelves together. The shelf assembly jig helps hold everything in place while I glue and nail it using, once again, the 1-inch brads. And here I'm tacking together the top using the top trim assembly jig. So you just set one leg using a cam so it stays in place, and then you line up the next leg and nail it. And you rotate the whole thing 90 degrees and repeat until you have a frame. At this point, it's not going to be very solid, but when you nail it in place to the box, it'll be good and strong. All right, let's go ahead and put this thing together. We're going to start by gluing up one side of a panel. Now, after doing several of these, you'll get a feel for how much glue to use and how to hold them so the glue doesn't drip all over the place. But, plan on making a mess the first few times. So then just grab a second panel and nail the mitered edges together using the 1 1/4 inch brad nails. I put a nail on the top and then at the bottom, and then I nail the rest of it. And then you just repeat this process until you've got a box. When you're doing this, remember the panels with cleats attached should be opposite each other, not right next to each other. And from there, you just lay the box down, glue up 4 corner braces and nail them in place using 6 nails each, and rotate it and just do the same thing on the other side. And now go ahead and glue and brad nail the top trim on. You can just eyeball it, but make sure it's straight. I've had to redo a lot of these because I got kind of sloppy. You'll most likely need to work on some of the mitered joints because there'll probably be some gaps. I'm usually able to just use a screwdriver to burnish the edges, but for larger gaps, I put some glue in, burnish with the edge of a screwdriver, and then sand. So just repeat the same assembly process for the other boxes and you'll have a batch of 5 all ready to sell. Remember to check out my side hustle starter pack, the link's down in the description. I've got the bulk cut lists for all 3 sizes, the pictures, plans for the jigs, basically everything you need to turn your garage into a little mini planter box factory. Anyway, I hope you enjoy building these and selling them as much as I do, and thanks for watching.